Good evening. Welcome to the meeting of the Wareham School Committee. Today is Thursday, February 25th. This meeting is being recorded by WCTV and broadcast live also by WCTV. So welcome everyone. There are 4 members of the school committee present. Mike Flaherty is not here. He has let me know that he is just running late. So Steve or Bob, if you could just keep an eye out for him joining the meeting. Thank you. So the first, also, I just need to note that the meeting is being done on Zoom, obviously. So all of the votes by the school committee will be roll call votes. So we'll go to the first item on the agenda, which is public participation. I know that Deanna Semple is on and she would like to speak. So Bob, if you could recognize Deanna.
Do you want me to speak without my video? I can't turn it on.
Give him a second.
I'll bring it up as soon as I can.
Okay, thank you. While we're waiting for that, I did want to just note that, so tonight, again, I'm so happy to see so many people on the meeting. We're happy to hear from anyone who wants to speak. I just did want to note that this, during public participation, is the time for anyone to bring up their comments. We will not be having any public participation during any discussion during the meeting. I know that at the last meeting, there was a little bit of that. And tonight, just for efficiency, we're going to keep the public comment here. And so, but again, anyone who wishes to speak is welcome to speak. So go ahead, Deanna, you're.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody. I just wanted to speak. I'm the president of the Wareham Education Association, and I just wanted to speak on behalf of all of us with regard to the extended days that are coming up. We all understand that the decision to extend the student day is not taken lightly. For those of us, though, who have spent the last 5 months fine-tuning curriculum, schedules, and new and innovative teaching styles, we are thrust into yet another change and farther into unknown territory. For many of you who do not work in a school setting, it may seem like we would just flip a switch and all would be back to a normal full day of school. But it's much more complicated than that, and much has to be considered. As an active participant who will be directly affected by this, as active participants, not just myself, who will be directly affected by this change, some clarification is necessary. So to say that students will be coming back in an effort to gain more learning time, we must be honest. The time on learning added will be minimal, but the time taken away will be substantial. You see, currently, when Monday, Tuesday cohort students leave for the day, hybrid teachers meet virtually with the Thursday, Friday cohort, as well as their virtual only students. More on that in a minute. This valuable time will be lost to the off-day students, meaning teachers will literally have no direct contact with students for 4 days at a time. And I think it's important that we note that. That's a significant amount of time. Teacher office hours, which parents and students have come to rely on to assist them with clarification, guidance, technology issues, will no longer be possible. There is also a very real concern that the gap of inequity between hybrid and fully remote students will increase if the day is extended or Wednesdays are added. Ideally, we would hope with every intervention possible to keep these two groups as equitable as possible, but it would be naive to think that there would not be a gap between hybrid students and fully remote students, and especially those fully remote students who do not have the supports they need at home. I can say at the elementary level here, K through 4, pre-K through 4, but these numbers are specifically K through 4, there are over 30 students who are assigned to hybrid classes, which mean their families opted to have them attend in school, but for one reason or another, they changed their mind at some point between October and now and opted to be remote only, and they no longer physically come into the buildings. The remote only classes are too large to take these additional students. So the hybrid teachers Zoom with these students on Wednesdays and in the afternoons when their hybrid students leave at 1. What will happen to these students when the virtual aspect of the school day is eliminated? Will they be teaching themselves? Also, to say that students will be coming back in an effort to help with their mental health, we must be honest. The socialization that occurred in schools in school years of the past is just not taking place currently. It's not taking place in the community, and it will not be taking place during the school day. The mental health crisis that is affecting everyone, young and old, during this pandemic is not going to be solved by bringing students into schools for 70 extra minutes. Remote class sizes may continue to increase if some families feel that extending the school day is not safe. Currently, Wareham has 750 students enrolled in remote-only classes. These students are spread out throughout all 4 schools, but the number of students per full remote class is much higher than the hybrid classes. Where will we put these additional remote students, in addition to the remote students who are listed as hybrid? In September, the commissioner asked districts to create 3 plans, one of which was a full in-person model. In our full in-person model with 3 feet social distancing, we needed at just one of the elementary schools, 9 additional classrooms and 9 additional teachers. So how are we all of a sudden able to accommodate full in-person now with this without additional space and staff? The teachers and staff have worked diligently these past 5 months to create a safe and effective learning environment for students, and it is working. Please take that into consideration before abandoning all of their hard work and effort to squeak out a little more time at school. Thank you.
Thank you, Deanna. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? If you would just put it into the chat so that we can recognize that. Kevin, are you able to?
He's muted.
Kevin is. Okay, so Brian Fitzgerald would like to speak. Bob, are you able to recognize Brian Fitzgerald? Oh, there he is. Okay. Hi, Brian.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm going to try to keep it brief. My name is Brian Fitzgerald. I'm a 5th grade humanities teacher down at the middle school. And I last spoke publicly in August when you were charged with making a plan to ride out this crisis. And one of the 3 things I want to make sure that is understood in this discussion is that simply the crisis isn't over. I looked it up. When I spoke with you at the beginning of August, and I compared that to this week, there are 9 times as many people in Massachusetts who tested positive for COVID this week than did when we, when you put the plan into place. And I realize that's mainly because of a lot more testing. I think pretty much everybody on the screen has shoved a Q-tip up their nose at some point over the last 8 months. But the rate of hospitalization is 230% higher. There are 230% more people in hospitals because of COVID than there were when we made this plan. So I think one important idea is that the crisis isn't over. And one of the ways we know this is, we're seeing the governor come out. We're seeing him bring the commissioner of education out to say everything's good, everything's fine. And then they email their staffs and say, stay home. It's not safe for you to go to work. You can stay home. The public interaction is not safe for you. It's safe for the people who are on my staff. But those of you who I know and protect, you should be staying home. Education finance is working from home. Education licensure is working from home, and they have been. Now, I'm a teacher. I want to teach. I want to see the students in front of me. So I'm glad that we have found a way to start doing that in this plan. But I think it's important to remember the crisis isn't over. The second thing I want to mention that I think we're seeing a divergence here. The politicians always want a clear yes or no answer. It's easier to campaign on. It's good. They can figure out what the polls tell them they believe. And scientists, we know, are very comfortable saying, I don't know. And I think it's pretty clear right now that we don't know the role of schools in transmission. And you can find studies and you can find people who say that there's no role. Emily Oster's made a great career out of publishing many articles in many outlets saying that it's safe to go back. Now, she's an economist, so I'm not sure why she's being treated as a credible epidemiologist, but she's an economist, and she's made a career of that. But when you drill down and when you ask these people who write these articles what their source is, you keep coming back to something from January 26th, the CDC study, not peer-reviewed, which given the crisis is certainly understandable. And they looked at 17 schools in rural Wisconsin. That is the gold standard right now in the Journal of the American Medical Association. The gold standard of research on school transmission is based on 17 rural schools in Wisconsin. And like any good science, the people who wrote this are very straightforward, that there's a lot of ambiguity. They use a lot of weasel words. It seems as if it's lower in schools than community transmission. It appears to be a lower rate. I mean, they do talk about the outbreaks that have happened and the higher attack rates, around 15% in some identified outbreaks in schools. But they use a lot of even-handed language, which is fine. That's good science. What concerns me, and the second point is, I hope that the good science does not get turned into bad politics and bad decision-making. They're doing their job, being even-handed, and it's very disconcerting to hear a lot of politicians, including our governor, pretend that these scientists are saying something they're not. One of the things they're saying is, we're pretty sure it's safe if we have updated ventilation systems, if we have mask discipline, if we have social distancing, if we have a testing regime in place, and we have a contact tracing system. And I'm sure that if we extend days or bring students more into school, the Wareham Public Schools will take all of that into account and put that in there. The very last thing, what makes this so frustrating, I think, is that we're so close. You know, I can imagine the day when I'm gonna be able to hug my parents again. Like, we're close. I have colleagues in other states who are getting vaccinated. Not Massachusetts. Baker doesn't want educators vaccinated, but other governors do. And I know the Wareham School Committee does, and I appreciate that you sent a letter trying to convince them of that. We've given up so much for the last 350. It was 350 days when Dr. Shaverhood sent that email saying we were going to be out in an abundance of caution. I counted it up. And we've sacrificed and we've done so much in 350 days. I think we can hang on for a few more weeks to make sure we're doing the right thing. It would be horrible if so many people gave and sacrificed so much just to decide at the end, we can't hang on any longer. Nobody remembers what a champion does at the beginning. Nobody thinks it's a great quarterback because of how they do in the preseason. Michael Jordan wasn't amazing for what he did in the first quarter. It's what you do at the end when the pressure is at its worst, when you're tired and you want to give up and just say, oh, let's just stop trying to do the hard thing. And that's where we are now. I'm just hoping and asking, as the school committee has its deliberations, that you remember that the tough decisions, the champions are made at the end, when it'd be really easy to take the easy route, but we've given up so much. Let's not have anybody wonder if things would have been different if we had just held out a little bit longer. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Joyce Bridget Kearns is up next.
Okay, thank you. There she is. Hi, Bridget.
Good evening. Hi, I'm here to encourage the school committee members to vote to return our kids to full day schools. I think the districts in Massachusetts have shown that it can be done. It is being done, and we're lagging behind. The data has and consistently has shown low in transmission schools. I'm not familiar with the study that Mr. Fitzgerald is referencing, but the one in the American Academy of Pediatrics that took place in North Carolina with 100,000 staff and students showed 770 something transmissions, and 32 were in school, and 0 were from children to adult. So the data has been consistent throughout that children are handling this virus well. They're not the spreaders. And I think it's time that adults take some residual risk so that our children can get an opportunity to have a better education. And for all of the workers that have continued to work through this pandemic in person that don't have jobs that they can, telecommute or do whatever from home, all the first responders, all the cashiers, all the healthcare workers like myself that have continued to provide care to patients. If your mother, falls and breaks her hip, I am there for her. If you have a family member who gets COVID, I'm the one welcoming them home. So it falls on deaf ears when I hear that teachers aren't willing to give, have some residual risk to go into a low risk setting when I've continued to perform a higher risk job without disruption. So I'm not stating that my job is harder than yours. I actually think what teachers are doing is much harder than what I've been asked to do, because my job has remained the same, minus having to put on full PPE and manage infections. What you're asked to do has been, what teachers have been asked to do has been unconscionable, to really strip them of what their skill set is in handling children in front of them, delivering not just lessons, but teaching to the whole child, being able to see their faces, read their body language, and address what they're struggling with without a screen, without a mask, having to figure out how to do Zoom. I still can't figure out Zoom. It takes me 10 minutes to sort out how to get online just to be at this meeting, because that's not what I'm doing. So I think what teachers have been asked to do has been far beyond what I've been asked to do in my job. But I think it's time that they take the residual risk to take a leap of faith and return to the classroom. The students in front of you are the same students in front of you, whether they're there for 3 hours or 6 hours. You're not really increasing your risk, in my opinion. So I think it's time that we're able to do this. I think to continue to say that we have to stay the course is not the correct course of action. I think, what if we just soar? Let's not cage everybody in. It's time to soar. It's time to let people fly and let these kids back into the class. So I'm asking for a vote from the school committee to return to a full school day.
Okay, thank you, Bridget. Thank you for sharing. Mike, I'm sorry, I should have recognized you before when you first came in. So I just want to stop and recognize that Mike has joined us like about 10 minutes ago. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, is there anyone else who would like to speak during public participation?
Looks like Marissa Smith.
Okay,
Good evening, Dr. Shaver-Hood, members of the school committee. My name is Sam Smith. I'm a teacher over at the high school. First, I'd like to thank Bridget for her comments and recognition of, how challenging it has been for educators in this setting that we are currently in. With that in mind, I'd like to ask the school committee to consider that until we are able to go back full days, which is my hope, I would love to do that tomorrow if possible, but we're not there yet. I don't even think that that's something that we are entertaining at this point. It was my understanding that it was going to be a phased approach, which is more concerning to me because it requires our students, our staff, and our parents to make layered changes and repeated modifications to curriculum and schedules, and not very many people adapt to that kind of change, especially under the circumstances that we're currently under. This is not like any other school year, and we have already had so many changes that continuing to change them in layered approaches doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. If anything, I would think that that would bring more anxiety and fear and trepidation to our students, let alone the amount of work it would be, again, for the teachers to ask them to revamp their curriculum and their lesson plans, again, to accommodate a whole new schedule and timeline of classes. The other real concern for me is the loss of time that we are going to have with those kids that are remote, who I spend hours a day worried over because they are failing. They are not thriving right now, and there is nothing we can do to reach them. They don't have a lot of support at home, some of them. And virtual learning is a handful for an adult. Asking teenagers and young students to do that is, unfathomable. And we would lose a lot of that contact time with these kids if we were to change that schedule again. And mind you, there is nothing we can do about parents that choose to keep their kids home. So although I agree with Bridget that I would love to see them back 5 days a week, full days, there are still a third of our population, if not more, who are choosing to stay home remotely. And I don't see that us taking, increasing by an hour or two per day for 2 days of the week would bring those students back. At this point right now, the teachers have gone above and beyond to do everything we possibly can to get the best out of our students and to provide them with the most that we possibly can. And it is working to the best of all of our abilities. This small little change would be so minuscule that it does not seem worth it to me. And it doesn't seem to make the impact that what we really want is our kids back in school full time. And until we can do that, making another change just doesn't seem enough and doesn't seem worth the risk. And what I mean by risk is I don't mean risk to us. I don't think there's, I know that we have some teachers that have some fear about health concerns, but to say that teachers don't want to assume the risk, that's not what we're talking about. We're more talking about a risk to our students' learning than we are a risk to our own health and safety. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Joyce, it looks like Wendy too would like to speak.
Okay.
I can't seem to undo my video so that you can see me.
Hold on one second, Wendy. Bob will
Okay, thank you.
bringing you up on the screen. Bob, are you able?
Okay.
There you go.
Yep, just got it. Thank you.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. I'm Wendy Neal. I'm a kindergarten teacher at Deaconess Elementary School. And our biggest concern at the early childhood level right now is by extending the day, we are going to be going 4 days without seeing our other kids. That is a long time to not have any communication with our other cohort. We're very excited at the thought of having the kids in school all day and being able to spend more time with them, have them with us, but it's at the risk of the other students learning. I know maybe at the higher levels, the children are able to work more independently and they do a lot of their work on the Chromebooks anyway. At our level, we plan purposeful lessons. We Zoom with them every afternoon for 30 to 45 minutes. On Wednesday afternoons, we plan small group lessons and we do small groups with that classroom all afternoon, just to keep that connection and so that we have a connection with them every day. If not, they're going to be coming to school Monday, Tuesday. We'll Zoom with them on Wednesday, and then we won't see them again until the following Monday. That's a long time for children. Another concern that we have as early childhood educators is what we're doing during that time. Right now, the time that we are in school, it's a shorter amount of time. We're able to do academics for that pretty much the full 4 hours. We have a 20-minute mask break with a specialist, either gym or music, and we have a snack time. And other than that, we're doing academics, and it is working right now with our kids. We just did our NUIA testing, and our scores look good. Mrs. Russo brought our scores into us today, and we've got a lot of blue on our scores, and that's awesome. And that's a huge difference from where they were in September, October, when we did this testing the first time. And by adding this extra time, I just don't know that it's worth it for what's going to be lost with the students when they're not with us, and that consistency. And you always have those students that maybe they're not getting the assistance at home. And without those Zooms to do those check-ins that parents feel accountable for or have the daycare do with them, you don't know what they're going to be doing for those days off, and there might not be any academics going on. We can only offer them the opportunity, but we don't know what they're going to do. But when they feel that accountability to come visit the teacher, and I know with my class, my kids come. The daycares put them on. We've worked closely with the daycares since this began in October. We've worked out schedules with them. Several of us have talked to the daycare providers. We send the Zoom lessons right to them, so they know what papers the kids need when they come on Zoom to make sure they're prepared. And just another concern we have for a future is, as we go into full day, one of the things that to make kindergarten developmentally appropriate again is we need our things back. We need developmental centers. We need to make it appropriate. We have in kindergarten, we don't just play. We have purposeful play. When the kids are in the block center, they're learning how to solve problems. They're having conversation. They're taking turns. They're figuring things out on their own. They're not just they're playing. They're learning that you can't just take something from someone else. You have to ask. It's building their oral language. And I just think a lot of these things are going to be lost by increasing the time now. And maybe, I know come April, we might not have a choice, but maybe then something else can be worked out that we'll be able to bring everyone back in all at once or something. But right now, what it's going to do to the cohorts that we don't see, I think is going to be more of a detriment than it will be a help. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thanks.
So I just want to say at this point that, we've heard from many people, and there will be later in the meeting a presentation about the extended day. And I'm sure that some of these questions and issues that have been brought up will be discussed. They're not being addressed right at this moment, but they will be. They will be. And I would also say that, at least a month ago, the district reached out. We have had a couple of conversations with the union. We've tried to have a conversation about this subject in order to hear all these concerns and address them as the plan was developed. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. So, the superintendent has reached out. Hopefully all the teachers, who had thoughts and concerns. I know she received a lot of response from staff and teachers and took that all into account. She and her team when they were making this plan. So I just want to make it clear that we appreciate what everyone is saying, and it's not being ignored, and that it will be addressed later in the meeting when the plan is discussed. That's all. I just wanted to make that clear. Is there anyone else who would like to speak during public participation?
Does not look like it right now, not yet.
Okay. I do see that there's a question about, will questions be allowed? No, we said at the beginning of the meeting that tonight there would be anyone who wishes to speak now at the beginning of the meeting is welcome to speak, but there will not be questions during that presentation later in the meeting. So if anyone else would like to speak, now would be the time to put that into the chat. We'll just wait a minute to see if anyone else wants to speak. Okay, so seeing no one, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Thank you, Kevin, for your help with that. The next item on the agenda is good news. Are there any school committee members who would like to share good news? Kevin?
Yeah, I'd just like to say I was able to attend my first meeting with the second meeting of the Strategic Planning Committee. And Dr. Schwam's done a really nice job putting together a very solid group of sincere people. that are now in charge of creating the vision for the Wareham Public Schools for the next 5 years. So it was a very good meeting, very well run, and I think we're setting a strong foundation for the future.
Great, thank you. Mike, go ahead. I saw your hand up.
All right, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Yeah, I just want to mention that I attended the legislative breakfast put on by the Cape Cod Collaborative. I know you did too, Joyce. It was interesting as always. Actually, Mr. Sweat was there. It was it's one of the things I try not to miss every year, and it went really well. I thought we had breakout sessions, and our session happened to be broken out with Representative Susan Morin. We had, we all asked our questions and such. But one thing that was interesting when we came back to the main part was how ticked off people were that chorus was being sidelined, but sports were being okayed. So just a little feedback there that people are really ticked off that we aren't doing chorus and theater. Let's see. Also wanted to mention that today I just dropped off. I officially resubmitted the warrant, the citizens petition to name the new school Wareham Elementary School, and I want to thank Ms. Bakayaki for her help on that as well. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for doing that.
Well, thank you.
Anyone else?
Oh, I do. Joyce.
Go ahead, Kim.
Yes, March 10th, we will begin kindergarten registration for next year. It will be online, and if you do not have access to print the materials or fill out the forms online, we will have packets both at the multi-service center and at DECA. So it's beginning the exciting time of year.
Great, thank you. Okay, I'm going to circle back for a minute because Deanna has asked me just to revisit what I just said. So Bob, I'm just going to ask you to bring Deanna back up on the screen. If that's possible. There she is. Okay.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay, so Deanna, go ahead. You go ahead.
So and I may have misunderstood you, but it should be noted that we just came off of a negotiations, which tied up a lot of time. And we sprinkled in there sometimes discussions of coming back. I've written to each school committee member my thoughts, what I just said on here today, basically in a letter form to you, so you knew our thoughts, our concerns and such. I've reached out to my members and asked them, and Dr. Shaberhood did as well, to share concerns. So it sounded like we weren't working with you on the plan to reopen. I just wanted to make sure that wasn't your intent.
No, it's not that wasn't my intent. I guess I wanted to make it clear there are a lot of teachers here with us tonight, and like you said, we just came off of another negotiation. There was school vacation in the middle of it. And time is just ticking by quickly, and you're right. So the superintendent was able to reach out and was able to get feedback from a lot of people. Not that your feedback isn't important. Obviously you're representing all of them, but in a perfect world, we would have all been able to get together and meet, but sometimes there's just not enough time for all of that to happen. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that we did make that attempt to try.
Right, we did. All right.
All.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so April, did you have your hand up? No, okay. All right, so we will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the student representative report from Emily. You unmuted?
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Emily.
I just wanted to share a couple of things. So I heard that Guidance is hosting over at the high school it's called On the Spot Admissions. So that'll be for Bristol Community College and Cape Cod Community College, and this is a really great opportunity for seniors who either haven't submitted applications or don't really have any plans for after high school. So I was told there was no fee for this, and I'm really glad that Wareham seniors are able to have this like resource from guidance. So that's really great to hear. And speaking of seniors, today was the last day to turn in our senior bio info, which is insane. 4 years of high school and then we just submit a Google form and then it's crazy. But I think this is the first time that this deadline has been put before the beginning of fall sports, because fall sports start on March, I think March 8th.
We'll be hearing more about that.
Yeah.
later in the meeting.
So I'm really excited. Yeah, super excited for Wareham to get active again in that and bring home some wins. Other student activities that are going on, I think the Wareham Viking Theater Company, I think it's called the 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. I forget like the exact name, but it's coming May 2020, and I know some kids that are involved. Oh, May 20. I'm reading the wrong thing. My apologies. There will be a play coming soon. That's not what it's called. That was last year. But there will be a play written by students that I know, so it should be good. Stay tuned for that. And another activity is astronomy. There is astronomy Zoom nights that I have not attended, but I really hope to. It's run by a teacher at our school. And I think way before like the pandemic, kids would actually go out and look at the stars like together in person, but it'll be on Zoom, and I think I'm going to attend that as soon as I can, and I will tell you guys about it. So I'm super excited for that.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Emily.
All right.
So
then
Mike,
we
see,
have
there
to
is theater happening at Wareham High School. Emily. Emily, are you all set? Did you have more?
Yeah, sorry, I think my internet connection was unstable, but I think that's good for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll move on to the minutes of our last meeting from February 11th. Are there any questions or changes that anyone has on the minutes? If not, I'll ask for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. April,
Yes.
Mike,
yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
and myself, yes. 500, thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is the overview of a school day with Scott Palladino. So we've heard from the other principals, and tonight we'll hear from Scott on the high school.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for having me. So students arrive at Wareham High School at 7:35 to the sounds of DJ Mike Murray playing music. He never repeats a song during the school year, and every day there is a timely theme to his music. 60% of our students utilize public school transportation, and 40% get dropped off or drive to school. Classes start at 7:40 a.m. and students are either in hybrid or online. All students learn through our synchronous approach. Whatever is happening in the classroom is broadcasted to the students at home. Anything superimposed on the wall by a document camera or projector in the classroom can be seen by every student at home. All of our teachers use the Modern Teacher platform to post work or links for the week, and all teachers utilize Google Classroom. Assignments and grades are updated weekly in PowerSchool, where students and parents can see them. The majority of our teachers use Zoom for the synchronous learning, but a few prefer Google Meet. First period begins at 7:40 and runs until 8:30. Students have 3 minutes to pass from one class to the next. The hallways, as you know, are all one way. Students can be 6 feet apart, and bathrooms are supervised and open on both floors. Second period goes from 8:33 to 9:23. Third period from 9:26 to 10:16. And fourth period goes from 10:19 to 11:09. Students then get on the bus. And first they grab a lunch, of course, then they get on the bus. They have an hour off for transportation and lunch. Afternoon classes begin remotely for all students at 12:15. First period runs until 1:10, and then the second afternoon period goes from 1:10 to 2:10. Teachers are available for extra help from 2:10 to 2:50 on Tuesday and Thursdays. Wednesdays, as you heard a couple of months ago, we were hoping to change the Wednesdays and to align with longer school days. Unfortunately, we couldn't wait any longer for the longer school days. So in January, at the end of the first semester, we did make an adjustment to our Wednesdays. So on Wednesdays, all students are remote and students are online with teachers all morning long. They have the same schedule for morning classes as was previously discussed. Advisory happens directly after lunch, and students have almost 2 hours of asynchronous learning. And then after the 2 hours of asynchronous learning, or if they choose, they can meet with teachers and have extra help sessions during that time frame. So there's two options there in the afternoon on Wednesdays. There's the asynchronous learning and or extra help with teachers. So it's really I think it's a great thing for our students, because as you heard from Sam, there are some kids that are struggling online, and that extra time on Wednesday where they know they can meet with the teachers is obviously helpful, assuming they reach out and utilize that. And as I previously mentioned, there's also extra help on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So we're very excited about the change to Wednesday, and we hope with our added time coming up on March 8th, that we will be able to maintain the Wednesday schedule. That probably will be the only thing that doesn't change. So I know that the question is going to come from Mr. Bajoli here. So students are online with their teachers for direct synchronous instruction for approximately 25 hours a week and 2 hours of asynchronous learning. Homework would vary by class, grade, and course level. Certainly would love to entertain any questions you may have.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Palladino? Go ahead, Kevin.
No, he took my question. I'm good.
I watched the last few principals present. I knew what was coming at me.
April, go ahead.
I don't necessarily have a question, but I do have to say, having a high schooler, that the change in the Wednesday schedule has been amazing. And I know how hard all the teachers work in every school, but having a child at the high school and the communication virtually and the reach outs have been, at least in my instance, have been really, really wonderful this year. When he was falling behind, I did have an issue with the online schooling. It has been very difficult, and other teachers talking about the mental health of their students, and my son personally had to get put on medication, and it has been with the combination of the support from guidance from Mr. Palladino and from his teachers, as well as from his doctor, and from all of the support that he's gotten through the Zoom and through the Power School and everything. It's a complete 180 flip. So I just want, people to know that it's okay if you're struggling, and that if you do need to get sort of an extra help outside of guidance or school help, and a lot of those kids may need that. It may have been something that was teetering before COVID and then just sort of, tipped the scales, and it's just been wonderful, the support that he's gotten this year. And the new change in the Wednesday schedule has been phenomenal for extra help. I've gotten so many messages about how much more engaged he's been, and how much, the teachers are really, really doing their best to reach out to those kids that are more on the remote side and more on the hybrid side. And it is just nice to see that the teachers in this district are just unbelievable. The principal, you guys all care so much about the well-being of the kids. And it's just, we're very lucky to have as many amazing educators in our district as we do, and I see it every day at the high school. So I just wanted to thank you for the change, because it's been a huge hit in my house.
Oh, great. Thanks for your kind words, and I will be sure to pass those along, because obviously those go to the teachers. So thank you for that. They're working very hard in this district, obviously, and we appreciate the compliments. Thank you.
Anyone else? Any
It's
questions?
intertwined, but it's important to understand that each of these are different perspectives and ways of viewing each of these life stages. Yeah.
All right. I don't have any questions, Scott. I would just say, again, echo what April said. And, when those concerns were brought forward about your Wednesday schedule, you reacted so quickly and made those changes. So that, thank you for doing that. And
in full disclosure, we were talking about it for quite a few months, because we knew it was an issue. but we were trying to be as least disruptive as possible and trying to align all the changes at once. But when we saw that it wasn't going to happen, we knew a good time was at the end of the semester. So thank you.
Okay. Mike, did you have a hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what April said as well. She did a great job. So one of my favorite parts of the agenda, and it was a good one tonight, Mr. Palladino. And back to Emily there, and Mr. Palladino, the astronomy teacher, that's Mr. Navarro, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I'm actually on his Twitter feed, and I see him post things, and I go look out sometimes to see what's going on.
It's an amazing club, and he's doing a great job of doing it virtually. But I'll tell you what, if you ever have a chance to come down to the school parking lot on one of the nights when he has the telescopes out, it's pretty amazing, and I it's open obviously to anyone in the district. I encourage you to do that.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
And we are having a play, by the way, and the music classes are singing, and the band classes are playing instruments. So I'm glad to hear that, we're doing that, but I don't know what other schools are doing, but we are doing that, and we've been doing that since we started sports. And to your point, we said if we can do sports, we should be able to do music and art and drama and all that stuff.
Okay, yeah, I was just surprised. It was a chorus of people at that meeting of school committee members, saying we need to allow chorus too.
It's a little more complicated when you have to have specialized masks and specialized equipment for safety, whereas with sports, it's just the mask. So it gets a little more complicated and a little more expensive, but we're doing it.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank
So
you.
we will move on to the next item, which is the fall sports update. So Bob, if you're able to unmask Ed Rodricks, I believe he's on here somewhere.
Yes, Ed's here. I'll start whenever you're ready to go, Joyce.
Go ahead, you can start.
Okay. So I just wanted to highlight the winter season a little bit and just kind of report out to you, and then I'll segue into the fall if that's okay. But the winter season went off without too many hitches. We had a few students who had to quarantine due to close contact with COVID positive people outside of school. And two athletes did test.
Sorry.
I'm getting a little feedback, Joyce. I don't know if that's just on my end.
No, somebody's not muted.
Okay. I think okay, I'll go.
Yeah, we're good now.
So
Okay.
two athletes did test positive due to contact outside of school. What's really remarkable is that we had no practices or games missed as a result of Wareham High School athletes being COVID positive. And we only had one game canceled due to another school having a student test positive. And I think, this really falls on the coaches, the athletes really following the protocol that we established and making sure they never put their team at risk. And I'm so proud of the athletes, the coaches, the athletic director, Ed, who's on, our trainer. It was just amazing what they accomplished this winter, just to have the full season, which was always in question. We were always day by day. I was very excited that we were able to bring the parents in for one game towards the end of the season for senior night. And I want to give a shout out to WCTV, and they just did an amazing job of filming all the home games live for parents to see. And these games were archived so people could go back and view. In many instances, we had over 1,000 views of these games. And I can assure you, there weren't too many games that I've been to where there've been 1,000 people at. So it's just amazing job by them. And we also had, as you know, the fitness and conditioning program, and that worked out really well. They were blessed to have some amazing weather where they could go outside, and the athletes received some great personalized instruction that they otherwise wouldn't have. And they finished the fitness and conditioning program in great shape, both physically and mentally, which is important. So again, I just want to give a shout out to all the student athletes for the winter, the coaches, the trainer, Ed and his staff. And as a result, I think we had a successful season for everyone. I'm also happy to report the GPA is staying strong. 85 GPA overall for all the students, athletes that were involved in winter sports. So that's a little recap on the winter sports. And again, we appreciate the support, and we're looking forward to the fall 2 season. And I loved hearing from Emily about having to turn in the bio before fall 2, but we'll move on. So it does start on March 8th, which is really great timing because we're talking about extending the school day on that same day. And I'm hoping it might minimize some of the transportation issues that parents and student athletes had in the winter when they were getting out at 11 o'clock. So that will start on March 8th. Football, as you may remember, has to start a little bit early because of the contact. They're starting on March 3rd. All teams will have between 6 and 9 games, obviously, depending on the sport. The season will wrap up in early May. We anticipate using the same COVID procedures that we utilize in the winter for the fall 2 season. Based on the South Coast Conference protocol, we just had a meeting yesterday. So the home school has the discretion of whether they allow fans or don't allow fans, whether they have only home fans or both home and away fans. So that's something we certainly have to work on, and we'll be in conversation with Dr. Shaverhood on that, but we just learned that late yesterday. There'll be, so the sports being offered at Wareham High School for the fall 2 are boys and girls soccer, boys and girls indoor track, or cross country, cheerleading, girls volleyball, field hockey, and football. So you'll notice that the indoor track, as you may remember, was moved into the fall 2. For a small school like Wareham, that can be very difficult. And, we are working through that because that kind of now dilutes the other teams. So now instead of having some varsity and sub-varsity, we may only have varsity. So we're working on that. But I just want to thank Ed Rodericks for the work he's done. I know he's here tonight. I hope you ask him lots of questions. But he's done an amazing job. Before it was an administrative job. Now it's administrative and supervisory. There are even more added responsibilities. He was always in charge of supervising, but he has coaches that are supervising. With the COVID protocols, he had to be hands-on all the time to make sure there were no issues. And I anticipate he'll have to do that again in the spring, in the fall. I keep fall 2. The good news with fall 2, as you heard, those sports, the majority of them are outdoor sports. The only exception, obviously, being the volleyball. So, like I said, Ed's on, and I know he's hoping you'll ask him a few questions.
Does anyone have any questions for Scott or Ed?
Where is Ed, Scott? We can't find him on the screen.
Where's Ed?
Yes. You have a different.
I hope he's on.
He was here earlier. I saw him.
Yeah.
You hear me?
Maybe he got lost.
There he is.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
We can hear
I got
you.
blocked out. I was on and then they took me off.
Oh, boy.
Somebody took me off. I'm right over here in this corner.
Bob in the back, he took you off.
Oh, it's because he doesn't have his name on it and Bob can't tell that that's him.
Oh, all right.
Okay. But we can hear you, Ed.
Okay. Any questions? I mean, Mr. Palladino accurately told everything that's went on, and it was a lot of work, but we got through it, and we're hoping that same thing is the same success we have in fall 2.
Ed, I just want to say I appreciate the work that you and Scott did. I know I expressed a lot of concern in the winter sports season. I'm glad we're moving most of these outside now, but you followed all the protocols, and I know you made your coaches follow the protocols. So thank you for that. I just want a clarification again on the cross country / track. Can a Wareham student run cross country at a different team? Or
No.
So it's just
You can only have one or the other, and right now we're trying to see what's going to be best for us.
right. But we've never offered cross country in the past.
Say that again?
We haven't offered cross country in the past several years.
No,
correct?
we started again. We were going to start it again last fall, and then whatever, all that stuff happened. So now we want to do it again, but then indoor track was canceled. So now we're looking at it. We're still in the process of either one or the other. Can't have both.
I got it. I understand that. Okay.
We're going to see what makes sense. It's against the MIA to have both, so we're going to try to see what works out best. We're still in the process, and we'll go from there.
Mike?
It's really going to be determined by the students and what they're, what they want to do. This is another student-driven process.
Are we doing girls softball? this year?
In the spring.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
One
that
more
was back
season
in
away.
the-
I know, Mike, it's confusing. I get confused. I keep saying spring and I've got to say fall too. But yes, all those spring sports will start after the season.
May 10th.
There
May
you
10th.
go.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
it is confusing.
It will be a nice spring because all that weather will be, gone, and we'll be into some warmer weather for the spring seasons. Hopefully less cancellations as well.
Yes, that's well.
April?
So I know that with the winter sports, having the capacity for venues to be indoors was obviously a hindrance for parents to be able to attend. And luckily, we do have an amazing group with CTV that was able to broadcast as much as possible. Are you anticipating the fact that some of the fall 2 sports will be outdoors, with the exception of volleyball and possible indoor track, if that's the route that you go, that more people will be able to attend because it will be outdoor? And if that's the case, is there going to be capacity limits on that? Will you have block offs of certain parts of the bleachers? Like, what are your plans for spectators? Because I know it's a big part, especially for the seniors. Aside from, I'm glad that for the winter sports that on senior night parents were able to attend, but I know that for the seniors, having people there to support them it's a big motivator for them, and it's kind of, especially with all the changes that have gone on this year. So I just want to make sure that, again, I know that you guys are doing everything possible that you can to keep the players, the parents, the staff, and the community safe. I'm just curious what the plan is for in-person attendance of those fall 2 sports, and then that would obviously carry lines are eased up even more by that time because of the weather, what the transition will be for that.
Sure. And great question. And I know I'm going to have Ed talk about the facilities in a second because he did a great job explaining, how lucky we are to have some of the infrastructure. I'm going to have him explain that. But so basically, late yesterday, we met with the principals and athletic directors in South Coast Conference. And there was conversation of whether it was going to be a conference decision on fans or if it was going to come back to the schools. And late yesterday, it was given back to the schools. So we really haven't had a lot of conversations yet. But to your point, April, it's outside. So I'm thinking there'll be more flexibility in the fall 2 season than we had in the winter. But today was a day spent on really focusing on trying to be ready for March 8th, if that does come to fruition. But we will have conversations. I haven't even had a conversation with Dr. Shaver-Hood about it yet. So we have to have those conversations. But I'm feeling better with the numbers today than I was the last time I presented about winter sports. So, I do anticipate we'll be able to have some fans, but we just need to make sure we have those conversations internally and then make sure we relay those to the parents. But I do want to have Ed talk about the infrastructure that we're blessed to have that a lot of the other schools in the conference don't have. Ed, if you don't mind, I thought you did a great job explaining that to me earlier. Yesterday.
Sure. Well, one thing we do have is with Splain Field, we can lock all the gates there and allow as many people as we want to let in. That's going to be our prerogative if we do that. A lot of other schools don't have that, so they're coming from all directions. We do have that capacity. Field hockey is near the track. Even that, we do have the ability to limit how many people could go to a field hockey game or a track meet if we had that, if we were able to do it. Obviously, volleyball has the gym. So we are a little bit lucky in a sense where we can control the amount of people, hopefully, that come to a game. And we're not sure yet on what we're going to do with that. First game's not until March 23rd, 4th area. And Mr. Baldino, myself, and Dr. Shaver-Hood will sit down and come up with a plan on how we want to do it. A couple of people for a game. I'm not sure exactly. We're going to discuss it and make sure we come up with a good plan.
I anticipate the parents will be much happier with the fall 2 season than the winter season in regards to being able to see games. That's my anticipation, but we've got a lot of work to do on that first.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Scott, you gave us the summary about the winter season. Thank you for that. So is that in lieu of the report that we would normally get?
No,
like
I could do that.
Yeah. Okay,
We're still getting the numbers, buses and all that stuff. So give me another week or two and I can put something together. It certainly is not going to be nearly as elaborate as the past, but we'll put something together in the next couple of weeks about the winter.
My goal was not for that to take the place of our traditional presentation, but to Ed's point, we're still getting transportation bills and official bills in the mail. So we just got a bill from Gallo recently from the rink. So it's gonna take a little time. I think he's gonna need a little more than 2 weeks. I would say if we could do that maybe in the middle of the fall season.
sure. I'm just curious, how it's going to look with the budget, because you didn't have any user fees, you didn't have any gate receipts, definitely in a short.
Based on our forecast, it shouldn't cost the district any more money to run that winter season this year than it did the previous year.
Okay.
Because there's less games, less travel, less officials. So
Right.
we should be, based on our calculation, we should be kind of cost neutral on that.
Okay, good. All right, thank you. If no one else has any other questions for Ed or Scott, we'll move on. All right, thank you. We'll move on to obsolete furniture.
Good evening. In your packet, you have a 2-page list of obsolete furniture and equipment that I would request that you deem as obsolete. This equipment and supplies have been are no longer being used. And if there's any electronics, what we've done is we've pulled all usable parts, and anything that is listed there's no use for it. So if you have any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer it. Other than that, I would ask for a motion to deem this obsolete.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Roll call vote. Mike?
Yes.
April? Kevin?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
And myself, yes. So 5-0-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is the monthly budget report from Christine Suko.
Good evening, everyone. In your packet, you received the January monthly report. I'm continuing to do projections as we get closer to the end of the fiscal year. Sorry, I can't. Okay. So anticipate bringing you more transfers at the next meeting. I guess I'm echoing, so I guess it's me.
Yeah, I think you are, yeah.
Yeah, maybe if I sit back a little, is that better? So I'll entertain any questions, but Mike, to jump ahead before you ask, there's nothing jumping out at me right now. We're actually, we're in good shape, so I'm going to continue to project out for the remainder of the year and continue to bring you transfers.
See, you've been on the school committee too long when the staff knows the questions ahead of time.
Well, no news is good news.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any questions for Christine? I don't have any questions. My only question was going to be about transfers, and you already answered that. So thank you.
Okay. So just a quick update on for budget for FY22. The town has proposed a 4.8% increase, which is just over $1.4 million. So if we take into consideration in December what you voted, there's going to be a revote at the next meeting. We'll present that to you because the increase in the budget will be $140,000. And if we take into consideration all the revenues that we spoke about in December, we will still need to fund $560,000 for FY22. But fortunately, we have another revenue source, which is where we're going to be receiving ESSER 2 funds of over $1.8 million. So we're in good shape. Kim, did you want to add something?
There, you know, and after looking at the budget and all the work that the principals have done, we've looked at staffing, and because of where we sit right now with the FY22 budget, we can safely say that there will be no layoffs for any personnel. And that's a wonderful thing to share. It's been several years since we've been able to share that. And actually, we'll be looking to add some staff in certain areas. So we appreciate the dollars that are coming to us. We understand that we need to use them wisely, because once they're gone, they're gone.
Mike?
Okay, so during that legislative breakfast, the superintendent of Bourne Public Schools brought up an interesting point, and she was saying how the Chapter 70 this year is really innately underfunded, even more so, because our school numbers, our population numbers, are based on October, and I guess she probably, like everybody else, is expecting a lot of the kids that were homeschooled this year will be coming back next year. And are we tracking that? And are we going to anticipate quite a few, are we going to be underfunded when we think we're doing pretty well?
Well, I think that in Derek's budget presentation, he expects a very slight increase, because the Chapter 70 formula is definitely based on the enrollment, but there's other factors that come into consideration, income, other things in the community. But there has been a lot of talk about that they use the numbers from October 1st of 2020, and it's across the Commonwealth. Every just what you said, Mike, that they anticipated that their Chapter 70 was going to be level or more, and they took the certified enrollment from October 1st of 2020. So
do we expect the bulk of those students to come back?
We're planning for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whether we get the money or not, we're planning for it. Okay.
Right. The other thing that we're watching is, because we are opening a new elementary school, we anticipate that we may have a bump in elementary students because of the building.
Okay, yeah, hope so.
Yeah.
Seems to happen a lot in different districts.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, if they come back, you get that money, I mean, from the state.
The next year.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, because that's already a done deal with Chapter 70 based on October.
Correct. You would get the following year, that based on the enrollment of October 1st of 2021, we would expect the increase in Chapter 70 the next year, 2023.
Hence the concern.
Right.
Well, I said hence the concern.
I would also share that our low income numbers have gone up. I believe we're at 35% now. So that's up 4 or 5 points. So that translates into additional money through Title I, and a lot of other things are based on the Title I funds.
So what was it 2 years ago? Like
it was
25%?
We keep getting less and less. So in other words, that isn't the low income of our district. Our district is around a 50% low income, but when they do the math for the formula, they use a different number. And for the last couple of years, our number was much lower. And so they recalculated the formula this year, and we just got that information, and the number rose substantially from the prior year and the year before that. So, it's what numbers they plug in to gather that formula, then gives us a number, and then they allocate the funds. It looks like we'll be in better shape this year than we have been the last 2 or 3 years, where they keep cutting and cutting and cutting.
Yeah. Okay.
So, we'll see.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other questions? So I guess I just want to take this opportunity to recognize that the town who budgeted, they had to budget understandably, very conservatively last year, really is showing their support for the schools this year with that bump in the budget number. So I just wanted to recognize that and, and thank them for that. Okay, thank you, Christine.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So we'll move on to the report of the superintendent.
Okay, first off, I would ask the committee to please accept the following gift. A Phillips and Bird 6-paddle stirrer. It's to the science department, and it was donated from the water department in Wareham. So I'd ask for your approval for that donation.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, do a roll call vote. Mary?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
April?
Yes, but I'm still curious what it is.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hear what you were saying. Hold on. Kevin?
Yes.
And myself, yes. So 5-0-0. Kim?
Well, I could make something up, or I'm going to see if Scott's still on so he could please explain it, because I think he knows more than I do.
I know enough to be dangerous. So the water department used this for testing water. And what happened was the company sent out 2 of these to the water department. And when they called to tell them they sent 2, they said, keep the second one. It's cost us more money to have it shipped back. So they were kind enough to think about our high school students, specifically the environmental science students. And so they'll be able to use this to test water, and it actually separates through mixing and stirring the different contents in the water. So it's a very expensive tool that we otherwise wouldn't have. So I appreciate you all accepting that gift.
Very cool. Thank you.
Next, I would ask the committee to please approve the bills and payroll warrants as listed in the newsletter.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Mary?
Yes.
Okay. Mike?
Oh, yes.
Yep. April?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
And myself, yes. 5-0-0.
Thank you. I'd like to jump over to the town meeting article. For town meeting, we need to submit this. This warrant article would authorize the town to vote to purchase a van from the Wareham Public Schools Foods Department. Now, there's no money coming from the LEA. Mr. Russo wrote a grant, and for $45,000, this is totally grant funded at no cost, and it will be used to help transport foods to different sites. Right now, as we take food out to different locations, it would be used. And then in the summer, we also take food out to different sites. So that would be the purpose of the van. Because it's grant funded, and if you would pass this, then I will go to Capitol, which I have a meeting tomorrow, and have this authorized by Capitol, and then we should be ready to move forward with it.
Okay. So Mike?
Just a quick question. What time is the meeting with Capitol tomorrow?
I believe it's at 2:00.
Okay. So moved.
Okay. April, let me just get a second and then we'll take your question.
I'll second and ask at the same time.
All right.
I'm just curious, if it's grant funded and no money is coming out of the LEA, why does it need to go to a warrant to town meeting? I'm just curious.
Because every new vehicle purchase needs to be approved at town meeting. If this was a used vehicle, we would not have to have approval. If it did not go past, I think, there's a certain threshold, but because it's new, everything needs to go that direction.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Mary?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
And myself, yes. So 5-0-0.
And then I would ask for a vote to restrict enrollment of students in the Commonwealth Virtual School if a total of students are enrolled exceeds 1%, then this would limit that, and it's taken at a snapshot in time. So this report that was in your packet was based on October 1, and there were 21 students, but as of January 1st, there's 17. And because of our enrollment, the 1% would be 20. So we are under our cap. If you do not vote, then there's not a cap. So I would ask you to please vote for a restriction, and then we will submit it.
April?
Can I just ask for clarification on what exactly, I understand like the cap, but just for, a lot of people that might be watching this or on, what exactly is the difference between the state virtual school? Is that considered homeschooling? Is that, what does that consist of, and why would that affect, why is the 1% important for us, is what I'm trying to understand.
The 1% is important because it helps keep our students here. And it is not a homeschool, it is virtual school by the Commonwealth.
Okay, so it's state curriculum versus district curriculum, but they would technically still, like, say hypothetically, I'm just trying to understand that a student that would be enrolled in this program, would they still graduate with a Wareham High School diploma, or would they get something through the state? I'm just trying to get clarification.
They would not have a Wareham High School diploma. They would have a diploma of whatever academy or virtual school they attended. Right now, there's a Greenfield Commonwealth Virtual School, and then there's the Tech Academy Virtual School. They have maximum enrollments, and if there's space, students can be accepted. If there's not, there's a lottery.
So we're currently offering remote learning. Do you think that is why the number is low? Has it consistently been low historically?
It's consistently been hovering around that number historically.
Okay, that I was just trying to clarify. Is that on a budget line standpoint, would that be classified for when we go through things as out of district placement? Is that why there's a cap for that? Like, is it like tuition based, or is it just because we obviously want to keep as many students in district as possible?
It would be like a school choice. So the money would not come to us. It would go to whatever school they enrolled.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Andrea?
I just wanted to say that the concern overall too is that the schools are not very well received. In other words, the quality of what they offer is not the same quality that students in Wareham, which makes it hard for us to say, yes, it's okay to go there, right? Because they don't have a stellar reputation in what they're actually having kids do. So that's another pull, right? It's like saying, oh, we really don't want you to go there.
So this is not to be confused with online classes that are available to students at the high school. So
it's completely different. And it's also not to be confused with homeschooling.
Mm-hmm.
That's completely different.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was looking to clarify. So thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike.
So this is really interesting. It's described as school choice, kind of. But like in any other school choice, like we'd have no say in percentages. If the people wanted to go somewhere else, they just go somewhere else. So I guess why are we doing this at all? Is this appropriate for some students?
I suppose some students do very well virtually. Other students don't. But if you do not restrict the enrollment, then we could find that we could find a greater number of students leaving.
No, I guess what I'm saying is, what if we set the number, restricted it to 0? I mean, could we do that?
No, you can't do that.
We wish.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you're looking to go like 1%. Is that the lowest number?
That's, yes, and that's set by the state.
Okay. So moved. Did I already do that?
Noted.
Yeah.
I just want to ask one more question. So
Can you give us a second first and then we'll.
second, and then I'll ask my question. So with the changes that we have made constructively throughout the district to incorporate our own virtual learning, and with the goal, obviously, we know to at some point when the timing and the logistics dictate, to go back in person, whether that's March 8th, whether that's farther down the line, however things end up panning out later in the meeting. My question is that something that we plan to continue to offer to those students that may have benefited, where you mentioned that some students benefit and do better remotely or working virtually? Is that something that we may be able to continue to offer in a post-COVID world to help keep those students in district, as opposed to having this outside source that's not as comprehensive as our curriculum? Or is that something that's on the table? Is that something that's being discussed? And whereas we have put so much work and so much effort into the online virtual, and I feel like our district has been extremely successful and above, in my opinion, anyone I know that I have friends and family in other parts of the state. I feel like we've done such an amazing job of doing the virtual learning. So is that something that we could continue or plan to continue to sort of make this not need to be an option for students, that they would feel that the need to go to this state program or this school choice program and still be able to maintain that virtual learning in district, so that they're still getting our curriculum and the benefit of our educators, but getting that virtual component that they need?
We certainly have been talking about that as we've thought about what it's going to look like post-COVID. However, what I would also share with you, at the last commissioners meeting, which was
Yesterday.
yesterday, he said that it was his intent not to have remote offered next year. So that puts a little bit of a change in our plans. And so Dr. Schwam and I are considering having an application for a virtual school. So we're going to be exploring that, because we do know that there are some students that do very well, and there are other students that need the face-to-face. So we're looking at what options exist for us, and we certainly will keep the committee informed.
So if the commissioner would approve that, would we be able to then be a destination for remote learning, much like the IB program, that we want to entice people to enroll in our district? And then that again is a self-funding kind of opportunity. And it sounds like that the state funded curriculum is the reason that we want to deter kids from doing that, is it's not as comprehensive as what we offer. Is that correct?
Yeah, certainly we would look to, we could accept students from school choice through a virtual school, and that would be something that would be very beneficial to us.
Thank you.
Like, go ahead.
So April really danced all around the question I was going to ask, and then Kim and Andrea answered it. So I was going to say, why can't we just do it? We're doing this so well. Why can't we just be a virtual school and get these monies and stuff? So that's great to hear that you guys are actually already looking into doing that.
I just want to mention the application is quite a bear, and it's an interesting dynamic, because it's like opening up a separate school, even though we don't want to be separate, because the intent is, if the commissioner is denying us the ability to do a virtual school here in Wareham for the kids that will be successful, we want to be able to accommodate them because we think we can, and we want them to be part of our district, however that looks. So what we have to do is sort of go outside of us, create this opportunity. And it's a timeline and so on and so forth. And I'll, go through all the documents. We'll go all through them. I'll have the schools go all through them, and we'll go through all of that to get there. But it should be interesting because times have changed and Department of Ed hasn't.
Is this something that could be tied in with the PASS program, where is that sort of an alternate learning situation as well for those that may require it? Is that something that could be under that umbrella with the PASS program, or is that still under the high school umbrella and not something that's separate?
Right. We want to, I think we'd have to go through the Department of Ed's process, no matter what, because if we really want it to be a quality program that meets our kids where they are, our kids are doing their stuff during the day. They're working like everyone else, and they're being really successful. So I just think we're just trying to open up the door and have a 21st century learning environment for our kids. And if we're going to try to go around and figure out how to get it done and approved, I guess, right? So we'll play their game a little bit and see if we can't get our kids accommodated.
Well, I look forward to hearing more about that.
They have criteria for every different program. It's I'm going to have to go with Andrew. It's kind of a pain in the neck.
Go ahead, Mike.
So I'm really curious. So let's say the student is sitting in Worcester and attending, a virtual school, not necessarily ours, but a virtual school. Where do they do extracurricular, if at all?
They don't.
They don't.
Not even locally in their own town?
No.
Okay.
I would think that a lot of the kids that remote or some of the online virtual fitting into their life probably weren't, and I'm assuming I could be completely off base, but aren't the ones that are involved in as many extracurricular, or athletic things on the outside. Most like I would assume there's a lot of kids that may have to help work, help support families, and in different situations. I could be completely wrong. I don't know if this is your experience, Andrea or Kim, if you know what the percent those kids that do utilize the online school currently in the program that we're voting on now, what the percentages are of what their where they would fall demographically when it came to extracurricular or sort of outside or athletic organizations.
I think in the past, our thought would be spot on. The kids would not be very involved. But I think what will be very interesting as we move forward and through the COVID and start looking at how we do post-COVID, we might see a shift. And that's where we might need to look at how do we engage the students, because they might be the students we want that still want to participate, but their learning style is better suited to the remote. So this is really perhaps going into new territory for us in education, and we're not really sure how it's going to look 3 or 4 years from now.
Go ahead, Andrea.
I do know this, that the rules and regulations that are set upon us make a fluid, interactive type experience, which is what I think we imagine for kids. They're invested in their own learning, and we're looking at the plan and the strategic plan, and we're looking through these different lenses at blended learning, traditional learning, virtual learning, all the different ways in which kids can grab learning, right? 24/7 at their interests and become engaged. I think that around these what we have to do is find a way to have what we do follow the rules, I guess, that the Department of Ed has set forth, but still move our district into a place where kids are served in the best possible way, whatever that looks like and what that means. So I think it's just an interesting place. We're in a really fascinating, a little frightening, but overall hopeful place in education, and we need to remain relevant and we need to be ahead of it, ahead of the curve. And I think that's what we're trying to do.
Okay, so back to the vote on the 1% cap. If we vote to approve this, we've done this in the past. Is that true? We've had
Yes,
this
that's
cap in the
true.
past. Has it ever stopped students from being able to enroll, or have we always just kind of hung out underneath that cap?
We've hung out, but what would happen would be if there was a student enrolled and we extended the cap, then they would not ever unenroll the students. They just would not allow any more students from this area to enroll.
Okay, but you're saying now there's room for another student or two, and so another student would be able to enroll up to that cap.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. So we'll do a roll call vote.
Sorry, I
Go
just have one more clarifying question. Does
Sure.
obviously the percentage, it depends on what we have currently enrolled in the district, where that percentage is. So it's a fluctuating percentage, correct? Because of
There's-
1% of 1,000 is different than 1% of 700, right?
That would be true, but
Okay.
they,
Just clarify.
yeah, it doesn't roll. They take snapshots in time, and that's what they use to measure your 1%.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, so we'll do a roll call vote. Kevin,
Yes.
April,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Mary.
Yes.
Thank you. Myself, yes. So 5-0.
Okay.
While Dr. Shaverhood is getting that up on the screen, so the school committee, we have not received this presentation because as we've heard, this has been a work in progress. So this is a presentation that, like I said, has been being worked on, and it will be shared with us after the meeting.
Okay, can you see this? Everybody see this?
I can.
Looks like the presenter view, though.
Yeah, I
Maybe
see
not.
it.
We can see all the slides.
Oh. All right, well, let's just see.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
All right. Well, how do you think I see my notes then from here?
Oh. Maybe go back and see if you can't do another hit escape.
We'll just get started. We'll figure it out, maybe. All right, so right now we're really talking about two cohort groups for the hybrid option. When you look at DECUS, you can see their total that they're working with on Monday and Tuesday, and then Thursday and Friday, as well as Minot with 97 and then 96. The middle school has two cohorts of 173, 170, and the high school of 180 and 159. Right now, we're looking at the current schedule, and then I placed to the right the proposed schedule. The proposed schedule for the elementary mirrors pretty close to what would be their normal day. As you go to the high school and the middle school, they're a little bit shorter. Right now, the reason why they would be shorter is the fact that we still need to do some cleaning between the runs, and this allows us that time to do so. So as we began this process, what we did is we looked at the various options. We explored the barriers. We put this document out and asked the directors and the principals to please weigh in. We met with the Wareham Educators Association. We would have liked to have met with them more, but as Deanna shared, There was quite a bit of things going on at the time. We still would like to get back together because we have several items left that we would like to have discussed. And we feel like they've been a very valuable resource, and it's a collaboration that we would like to continue to work with their members. I also put out a parent and guardian survey, and I believe that I shared the numbers with you. And when we looked at what the results were, and the three questions were, would you like to return? Would you like to stay status quo? Would you like to have a more of a lead-in approach, or would you like to just have this changed? And 58%, or I'm sorry, 58% of the parents said they would just like to have the change done as we start. I also then asked about eating lunch in the cafeteria and how they felt about that, stating that it would be socially distanced, but students would have their mask off. And 73%, I believe, responded that yes, they understood that and that would be acceptable. I've checked with the Board of Health to ask if they have concerns with us extending the time, and they said no, they did not, as long as we maintain the social distancing and followed the protocols that we have in place. I then invited the staff to share some concerns, and I have to say how much I appreciate the number of emails that I received from staff. They were very helpful. There are several concerns expressed by our staff. One, and you've heard them tonight, being able to continue to connect with remote students. Also, to begin to be able to connect with students that are in a different cohort. And there will be some time, if they are not streaming with the students during the class, there will be some time when there's a gap between the contact. And we are concerned about students having an extended period of the day with mask on. However, the principals have been working. We will have several mask breaks. There will be, for the elementary, approximately 20 minutes worth of the mask breaks at various times during the day. One of the issues that was brought up for the youngest students is the problem with lunch and how often it takes people to help the students open their milk, unpackage different things. We had a conversation then with the food service director about how can we front load the lunch for the younger kids. They're still going to be having a bagged lunch, a sack lunch given to them. However, what we're going to do is when the food is packaged, it's going to be packaged differently, so it will not be as hard to open. We're also going to have the milk set up ahead of time, so a student will just have to go pick up their milk. The straw will already be in it, so we won't have that kind of hands-on assistance that has been like in the past. You might ask, why are we not serving a lunch, the hot lunch where they go through the line? Well, there's several reasons for that. Number one, we think we can cut down on the social, we'll keep our social distancing more intact by being able to deliver the sack lunches to the students. But we also just simply cannot produce enough food to feed our students in school, man the serving, and still distribute food to the community as we've done in the past. And so when looking at that, at that point, knowing that we still need to feed our students in the community, then that's why we opted to remain with a sack lunch for students. The other thing that we will be doing is passing out the breakfast item at the end of the school day for students to bring home with them to consume the next morning before they arrive at school. We really do not want to have students eating in the classroom, and we felt like this was one way that we could have that not happen. At this point, we're not going to do anything with preschool. We're going to wait and have some meetings with the preschool staff, the principals, and see how do we make the adjustments for our preschool students. We're also not able to move the pass or the evening pass program ahead because our town buildings are still closed. And as we have the pass program in a town building, we really can't open it up to the public. Once the buildings are open to the public, then we will have that discussion about how we bring our night school students back to school. So at this point, we're proposing that March 8th, we extend the cohorts. The lunch times will be reduced at the elementaries to 20 minutes, and the recess break at Deacon's will be at 20 minutes. One of the topics that several of the teachers shared is what are they going to do during recess, because they cannot play with the usual toys that they've played with. And as far as having students out on the playground equipment right now, we do not feel like we're prepared to sanitize, social distance kids, et cetera, at this point. So I know Bethany is working with her staff to put orders together to order different items that will be used at the recess time, and then they will be sanitized every day. The middle school and high school lunches will be at 25 minutes, and they will have mass breaks as needed. And I already shared with you about the end of the day, the lunch items. For right now, when we start on March 8th, if that's what the committee votes to do, we're going to remain with seating at 6 feet for now. An interesting piece that needs to be known is the DESE came out with their guidelines. Their guidelines are 3 feet. And he is not coming off his guidelines. So the commissioner has stated that we could bring students back and 3 feet is adequate. We're going to remain at 6 feet now. Our daily cleaning will continue as it is. And at this point, Wednesday remains a remote day. The reason why Wednesday is remaining a remote day is that's something that we need to have an agreement with the educators. It's in the MOA, and it specifically states that Wednesday is a day of remote, and it's sanitation. So for us to do something with Wednesdays now, I fear that it would not be a wise move to do, and that's something that will need to be negotiated. The cafeteria will be social distance. We've ordered some industrial size air purifiers that will be placed in the cafeteria that are made especially for large areas that will help purify the air. At this point, transportation will remain the same. Students will be assigned to their row. They have their seating. They'll stay in those seating. Another point that I would like to share with you is the commissioner has removed all guidelines for transportation with the exception of wearing a mask. They've taken away the number of students per row, the amount of students on the bus. And so theoretically, we could transport everybody as we did last year on the school bus and still maintain those guidelines. At this point, we are not going to move to do that, and our food sites will continue. Now, the commissioner has also stated that on April 5th, elementary students will return to school full time. And I think that there may be several things that happen between now and April 5th. So at this point, we are planning for March 8th, and we are beginning to look at what it would look like if we brought back our elementary students on April 5th. The other thing that the commissioner said is they will be providing us target dates to bring in middle school and high school. He does not assume that we would be bringing in those two grade levels on April 5th. April 5th is just merely being targeted for elementary to return. So I think that's something that we're going to have to watch and see how we're going to make adjustments. Again, everything will remain in place as far as the cleaning, the mask protocols. If the committee would vote to approve the March 8th, then what we will begin doing is notifying parents of the release of transportation times. Bus numbers will remain the same. And so during our discussions about what would take place on March, when we're back full time, we know that we do have some students that need remediation. And so we've been looking at how do we staff this? And if you've noticed, we have a number of postings that are up. We have several postings that we've placed up that if hired, they would work with students who are behind. We know we have some that certainly need this help, and we would like to be able to provide it during the school day. We're also looking at expanding our social emotional supports for students. We've had a posting up for social workers. We've started interviewing the social workers, and they will be hired to make contact with our students who are certainly struggling. It will occur either during the school day or after school. And that program is totally grant funded. And we hope to be able to continue it through the summer. As far as additional remediation plans, we're beginning to program for summer remediation. We know some of our students will need that, and we need to be ready to provide that. At this point, our cohorts would remain the same. We would not merge the cohorts. And if there was a parent of a remote student that would like to bring their child back in, what we would look for would be, are there empty seats available without destroying the cohort numbers? If that's the case, then at a certain point, I think for middle school and high school, it would be at term 4. And the elementary, it would be really up to the principal and the teacher about when there would be a good break to bring a new student in. What will not happen will be our cohort distribution numbers skewed because we would have a plethora of people wanting to come back. That simply will not happen. We're not going to change the dynamics of that cohort and overload it. So what we would like to move forward with is to looking at how do we combine the cohorts at some point later on in the school year so they are attending either 4 or 5 days a week. We would like the length of the day as in the past of regular. We are looking at implementing after-school programming at some point as we move on. We certainly are looking at summer programming and how we're going to do it, what we're going to offer, and how we're going to make sure that we provide what our students need. And we're looking at what's going to happen on April 5th coming from the state. The commissioner did make the statement that after that date, if we were not meeting the minutes that were set as required, they could have expectation that we are attending school in the summer to meet those minutes. So I think that where this is going, it's really hard to say. Our focus right now is just on getting ready for April 8th, if that's where the committee would like to take us. And how do we make sure that that's successful? What's going to come up down the road? Certainly it's going to take planning from all of us. But once again, it would be our expectation to work collaboratively with the educators and the staff in the buildings to come up with what the best plan is. So if we would move forward and our numbers begin to increase, it's very likely that I would put us back into an original schedule. What I am not going to do is to put any of our students or staff at risk if we start seeing a rise in numbers. As you know, it's been a very frustrating, couple of months trying to get vaccinations for our teachers. We're still trying to get them, and it doesn't seem like we're really any closer into having any solid information about, other than the fact that teachers are next on the list. We would really like some more for this to be more defined. So I would imagine you have some questions, and I have the principals here. So we're all ready to jump in and answer whatever questions you might have.
So before we ask questions, Kim, do you think it would be helpful to have the principals maybe address the committee just with some of the major points that they've been working on, and maybe address some of the points that were brought up by some of the teachers at the beginning of the meeting? Because I'm sure that some of those are already being addressed by the principals.
Yeah, I think that would be very helpful.
Okay. Scott, would you like to go first? I see you. I see you.
Sure. So, we surveyed the students, and I was actually looking at that data as you were all talking. And, the overwhelming majority of students want to come back for more time. They do not like the online learning, and they even want to come back on Wednesdays. So they just want to come back. There is a percentage of kids that enjoy the online venue, but the overwhelming majority want to be back. They want more time in school. They want more time with their friends. They want more time with their teachers. And I think we have proven that we can do that. The schedule is not going to have more students theoretically, maybe one class more per day. So I don't think there's going to be an issue with, we're going to keep the 6 feet. I don't think there's going to be an issue with teachers contracting COVID because we go to school for 2 hours more. So, I've been advocating for this for a long time. I am excited that it's coming to fruition because I truly believe this is what's best for our students. And our teachers are already in school all day, so it's really not going to change their lives tremendously. So I am ready to go. Just waiting for you to give us the green light.
So I guess I have two questions for each principal. So the first question would be, what are some of the things that will be different? What are some of the things that you will have to change? And how will you communicate these changes in times and things to the students and their families?
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead. We'll just go around.
So I think the biggest change for us educationally is going to be, we're going to be able to probably add another period. We're working with the staff, surveying the students. Dr. Shaverhood did an awesome job surveying the parents. You heard about that data. So we've got some really good data. So I think the toughest thing is another schedule change. We try to minimize disruptions and minimize changes. So that's, I think, going to be it's going to be something we're going to have to work through, but it's not, trust me, it's not a deal breaker. I think the other piece that's going to be tough is the lunches, just making sure that we establish protocol from day one, that we keep the students 6 feet, and then coordinating mask breaks during lunch for those that want them. A lot of the students, believe it or not, don't want mask breaks. They don't want to take their mask off, and they don't want to be around other kids with their masks off other than in lunch. So that's interesting feedback from the students. So those are really the two largest pieces for us. And then just as we anticipate more students will want to come back because we're in school for longer periods of time, just managing the influx of requests that I think Tracy and I will receive from the parents. And we are holding to that term, end of term 3, start of term 4 threshold. So for the high school, those are the biggest pieces, but trust me, we'll work through them.
Okay. And what about the communication to this?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
That's okay.
I'm a little excited about getting kids back. So you definitely, what we hope to, our plan is if things are approved today, we're going to kind of take a look at a couple models with the teachers on kind of a rotation for the schedule. Tomorrow we'll send it out. We have a general meeting on Monday. We'll solidify that by Monday afternoon, hopefully. And then obviously get the word out to the parents in every form and fashion possible to make sure they know, and obviously get it out to the students as well. We have the students as kind of a captive audience, so the communication with students is pretty easy. But I don't anticipate us having any issues, having everything in order by the time we leave school next week on Monday.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joan, do you want to go next?
Hi. So some of the things that will be different for the elementary students, obviously, will be eating lunch in school. When they come back on the full day, that's going to be the first day of school all over again for them. So we actually have to go through what that will look like. So we'll have to practice in the morning how they're going to walk out of the classroom, social distance, up the stairs, sanitize, grabbing their lunch, sitting down, eating, getting up, throwing away the lunch, sanitizing again. We because of our age group, we have to go step by step with the students to teach them all of that. We've written all that out for the teachers. I did meet with my staff today. I called the staff meeting and everybody came to it just to say, hey, this is what we're thinking of. Have we missed anything? So it's a collaborative, effort. Unified Arts will be in the classroom, whereas they've been remote up until this point. The students have to get used to a longer day. It's been a short day for them all year, and they weren't even in school since March 13th. So that's going to take a little bit of practice there. We'll have additional mask breaks scheduled for them. I'll make sure I get this information emailed out to the parents. I'll include it in my Friday video updates that I do. We'll put it on social media. So we wanted to make sure this meeting happened tonight. Mm-hmm. As the principal, I'll write everything up for the families, and then the teachers also will then work with families on what the schedule is going to look like, and as they go throughout the day.
Okay, thank you. Tracy?
So I agree with everything that Joan and Scott have said. The teachers talked a lot about change. This has been, I think teachers especially, and I'm including myself in that, do not adapt well to change suddenly. We're in education, we like our routines. This has been a tremendous effort on our teaching staff, on all of our staff in our building. I think everything has just been changed in an upheaval since for a year. Nothing seems to remain the same. And we're constantly looking for, oh, we're going to do this. No, we're going to do that. So I understand the trepidation by our staff. It's very difficult and challenging. But I think when we look at what's best for our children, I think this is going to be what's best, but it's the fear of the unknown. So we are fearful. We want to remain safe. And I definitely want my staff and my students to remain safe. So that's going to be still our number one priority. And I do believe that the superintendent supports that. We have a plethora of PPEs still. We're also looking at every single angle about how this is going to affect our day. As Joan said, lunch is huge, 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 huge impact. So right now, the admin at the middle school and at Minot are working with the cafeteria staff to ensure that that is as safe as possible. There was some discussion by the teachers about not having enough time for remote. At the middle school from the very beginning, just by chance, the schedule that we went with provided teachers with a period for remote kids. That will continue. It may look a little different. So for instance, if a remote student was receiving social studies first period, they may receive social studies second or third period. But the times will remain the same. 98% of my staff have been providing synchronous learning. And that took a little bit of time to build up to, but they're zooming in the cohort that's at home. So they're teaching a lesson to the 15 students in front of them and to the 15 students at home. So that has been a wonderful experience. Again, it was an adjustment, it was a change. I don't see the times changing. I just see the in-person times changing. How we're going to communicate this, as the other principal said, Facebook is wonderful to us. It gets the word out. I do send a newsletter home almost every single week, so I will send that through Power School. And I think communicating it to our students, this will be a change. It will be a change for all of our students. But I really think it's a positive change. Scott and I have really been for this from the very beginning, trying to get the older students back, but seeing a huge need for the younger kids too. So, and it's not at the expense of safety, I don't think. Right now, just going for a few more hours, we're hoping that all of our safety protocols will be in place. The superintendent has assured us if numbers do rise, we will go back to a shorter day, or as she's always said, we'll go back to fully remote if we have to with all students. So I feel comfortable with that. I believe that we're ready for this, but change is hard. And we've asked a lot of our staff this year.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. Bethany?
Yes, I echo what all my colleagues have said. I'll say this, though. We have the best role models in town in our buildings. So face-to-face is so important. Our children really do need to be with our teachers. I've got the best role models. And they'll, we can't, that's the truth. So do I want my students with staff? You better believe it, because we've got a great teaching staff. We've said it all throughout the meeting tonight, and we can't take that away. Face-to-face is a powerful, powerful thing for young learners. If you look at the early childhood standards that DESE's put out for pre-K and K about social emotional learning, there's about 60, 70 standards all about play. And I think Wendy Neal said it, it's got to be effective play. It's so important. And we are in our building very, very creative about how we can play safely. And we have been along. I've seen it for the 3.5 to 4 hours that we do it 2 days a week. So I know we can do it for 6 hours, 2 days. I look forward to April 5th. I have to be honest. I look forward to having them with us for 4 days. And when it comes to communicating with families, I will send this out via newsletter by email, but I also enjoy our family Zooms. I've done it on occasion where I've invited the parents to have a Zoom, so I will set that in motion. It's been very well attended. And that's really where we're at. So I look forward to the possibility of March 8th, but I really do look forward to April 5th as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to all of you for going through all of that. So I'll open up to the school committee. Any questions of the superintendent or any of the principals? April.
I do.
Sorry.
Hi. So I like that you guys have gone through with the multiple phases and how comprehensive the plan is in the phasing that you've taken consideration to a lot of things. I just have a couple of questions. So in the report that was sent to the school committee about the draft plan, you guys had mentioned that all furniture that was being stored in the cafeteria in the various schools because of I believe extra furniture for social distancing, extra desks, things of that nature. Where will those be moved to? And if they're being moved into like an external storage facility, is that another fee that we have to encumber? Is that something that's already incorporated budget wise? I don't know if that's something Christine can answer. My second part of that question would be for putting out for applications for cafeteria monitors and for substitute teachers. And for that date, it's a little over a week away. And I know that you guys have been working on this plan well in advance, but should, just wanting to make sure that those goals of having that additional staffing in place would be vetted and hired and background and everything checked in enough time for that March 8th date. And then my third part of the question would be in regard to when you're having more kids in the schools, what are we doing to support the school nurses on the idea that there may be an increase of sick kids or things of that nature, and what support will be there for each of the schools with the nurses and their staff and protocols once the cohorts are a little bit fuller going forward.
Okay, I can answer, I think, these questions, and please help me if I miss something out, principals. Right now, the furniture that will be moved out, we have some areas that it will be moved to. We're not going to encumber any monies to cover this cost. So we can cover it without having to rent facilities, etc. So we feel good about that. And that will be, we're in the process of making that plan now. The nurses, what we did back in the fall, we brought in a CNA or a nurse. So in every building, I have 2 people in the nurse's office, and that's worked out very well. I don't think that there'll be additional help needed because they already have a second pair of hands. But if that was the case, then we would go out and advertise to provide that support. We already have in place permanent intermittent subs, so it's not like we're starting from scratch. We put up the lunch monitor positions, substitute teacher positions a couple days ago, and we already have some applicants in all but maybe one school, and that we are working on how we're going to cover that if there aren't any applicants there. But we do intend to add additional support, and we will continue to work toward finding people to do that. I think I covered all your questions.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Mhm.
Anyone else? Mary?
So I'm just going to stand on my soapbox for a little bit. Please bear with me. I'm just really frustrated, to be honest, with how the vaccination is being distributed, especially when they're asking us to bring children back, students back, the urgency of bringing students back, and yet educators and public school staff members are not on a priority list for the vaccination. So I just want to put out my frustration that this is extremely irritating to me, that we're trying to push students back, that there's an urgency, which there should be, absolutely, yet there's no urgency to give the staff vaccinations. I'm sorry, that's just my little soapbox right now.
Thank you, Mary. You don't have to. Anyone else? Kevin or Mike? Mike?
All right, actually, first question is to April. April, did you get one of those surveys?
As a parent, yes, I did. And I made
Okay.
sure to share it on my social media as well. But I did get the survey and I turned it in the second I got it. And I'm hopeful that, you know, I don't know if Kim had shared the percentage of families that it got sent out to that responded. I know you did respond percentage of what you got and where their answers lied, but in the amount that you sent out, I'm not sure how many people participated. I hope that many people and all the parents in the district did, but it was very simple to complete. It was just, you know, where do you feel how things should go, just to get a feel for what the parents were hoping for. And I like that there were the three options, like did they feel more comfortable staying remote? Were they interested in a phased in approach, or is it get my kids back yesterday? So it was very just to the point, which I think was good. And it was an easy survey to fill out, I found. So I was pretty happy once I got that and sent that in.
Yeah. And Mr. Palladino reminded me, or all of us, I guess, that the teachers are in the building all day anyway, right?
Correct.
Is that for all the schools?
Yes.
Okay. And so this took a lot of work, and I appreciate that. And I think Ms. Cote, she summed it up. She said, this is going to be difficult. It's going to be a challenge. Lunch is going to be a huge impact, right? I mean, this is a big deal, right? Anyone?
Yes.
Yes.
That's what she said.
And that's why I'm just kind of scratching my head, because I don't know, somebody, I think I heard someone correctly at the beginning during the public participation, they said not to take the easy way out, like that by moving forward with this, somehow we'd be taking the easy way out. This is going to be anything but easy. But I'm reminded about what Mr. Brigioli was saying about, you know, earlier about risk and reward, and I mean the reward is, I mean, I think the principals are in complete agreement that the reward far outweighs the risk here.
Mike, other schools have been doing this for months. We have learned from them, from their, you know, what worked, what didn't work. Yes, it's complicated, but with a well thought out plan and plenty of feedback from staff and students and parents, this will work. It's being done in other districts all over the place.
Yeah, and from the very beginning, that's the one word I use to describe this whole process, and I really credit the central office working with everybody. The one word that keeps popping to my mind is thoughtful. It's been so thoughtful the whole way, and this is no exception. So I'm in support of this.
Yeah.
Kevin?
I'm going to take a page out of Mary and jump on my soapbox for just 1 minute. First, I want to agree with Mary very much about the vaccinations. I think Governor Baker's stance right now not to prioritize teachers defies common sense, which is why we sent the letter that we sent. Number two, if I'm not mistaken, as Scott just said, we're one of the few districts in Eastern Massachusetts that's not going for a full day under the hybrid model already. Number three, we have asked teachers to do a lot and to alter the way they teach, and many of them have had to learn new ways, new technologies to inform their instruction, and they've done that, and I'm grateful for them for that, and I know we all are. Number four, I've heard a lot about change, but in my mind, and I've heard other administrators say this today, what's best for kids trumps change. And I'll leave you with a quote that probably, if someone's never been quoted here before, of Saint John Henry Cardinal Newman, who said, to live is to change, and to change often is the way towards, I'm paraphrasing now, but to change often is the way towards a perfect life. So change is hard, but change is part of life and it's necessary.
Thank you, Kevin.
I-
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I just wanted to add a few other pieces. You know, one of the other pieces that I failed to mention is we are also looking at how do we bring back additional special ed students, and that would be for 4 days a week. That's something that we're working on and that we're going to continue to work on, because we feel like we need to do a better job servicing our students. Somebody asked me, well, why don't you just wait till April 5th and not start on March 8th? And so I thought, well, that's a good question. So let me look at this. And if we did that, we would lose 147 hours combined of our schools of time on learning or time for our students to be in school. So for me, that loss of 147 hours is extremely significant and not worth delaying the return for.
April?
So I just have another question. So in regards to like parent drop off and transportation, I know that transportation has been a large concern, especially in the winter for a lot of families where, you know, having to have the bus windows open and the criteria for that. I know that the DESE has changed the criteria that now the buses can be fuller with the windows still being closed. However, do you anticipate a larger number of people doing parent drop off? And is the time that you allotted in between the bus drop off and the parent drop off in the presentation that you sent, do you believe that that's going to be enough time if there are a significant number of more families doing a drop off and the congestion that that can cause? I know that at Deacon's, that intersection and that parking lot can be a little bit tough. I live right next to it. And I also know that Viking Drive going from the middle school and the backup that can take down to the high school. So do you anticipate more traffic? Do you have a plan in place that there is going to be flexibility with that timeline of the drop off to the bus drop off just to possibly accommodate more families choosing to drive their students because of some of the busing restrictions and criteria?
Right. Yes, I think we have enough time and the flexibility. And if we need to make some adjustments, we're certainly willing to do that. When you know, we have that little piece in there about 10 minutes before, and we know some come earlier, some come a little bit later. And I believe that we're pretty well covered with that.
Thank you.
Okay. So I don't have any more questions. Thank you for answering all of those questions, everyone. I just wanted to say thank you. You know, as Mike pointed out, this has been a very thoughtful, collaborative effort by everyone involved. And, you know, at this point, I just feel like we need to do what's best for the students. And that's obviously, you know, to support this return to a longer day for me. But I do want to say that I do hear what the teachers are saying, and we will, you know, I'm sure that the administration will continue. I don't like change either. And so I get it. But I know that, you know, administration will continue to listen to the concerns of teachers as they have all along, you know, and we'll move forward from here. And I do just want to point out that we are only voting tonight for this change that will take place on March 8th. We're not voting on any change that will or could take place in April. You know, we don't know what that will look like yet. This is just for this first step on March 8th. I just want to make sure that's clear for everyone. Is there anything that anyone else would like to add before we take a vote? Okay, so I will ask for a motion to approve the plan to extend the school day starting on March 8th.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. April?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And myself, yes. So 500. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Can I just add that I do appreciate that in all of the work that you guys have done, that you do have the caveat in all of these plans that should the numbers continue to rise or should transmission or issues arise in the school, that you do have a plan to revert back. And I think that having that safety net and having what we've done so far, for peace of mind, that we know that we can make this work, should, for some godforsaken reason, things continue to not improve, but, kind of go backwards once things start to reopen again. I'm really grateful that you guys put that into effect and that you are taking into consideration to constantly watch the numbers and to pay attention to how things are going. So I do just want to give you guys a lot of credit for putting that in there and not just wanting to roll forward and just going forward for the sake of going forward, but the thoughtfulness of keeping the teacher safe, keeping the kids safe, keeping the community safe, and having that safety net of being able to revert back and constantly monitoring what's going on. I think that, a lot of people just need to know that that's still a possibility, and it's not just, throw everything back in and keep moving forward if it's not safe to do so.
Absolutely.
Okay, and so our next meeting is on March 11th, and then after that, March 25th. So we do have 2 meetings before that April date. And again, nobody knows what will actually happen, but we'll certainly be talking about that, at every meeting going forward.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is that the end of your report?
It is, yes.
Okay. So we'll move on to the report of the school committee. For right now, it's getting late, so let's skip over the code of ethics, and let's go to the policy review matters first. So I'll turn it over to you, Mike.
Thank you. All right, so you have before you the policies that we reviewed 2 meetings ago, actually. Or maybe it was last meeting, but anyways, you should have the actual changes in your packet. And I guess I'll start with the first one here, parental notification relative to sex education. And I'd like to just thank Jamie Wixton for drafting the notes quickly for, basically a little mini minutes, just a little synopsis of what was discussed. But the long story short with this one is that Ms. Cote made a motion to accept the policy as is, and we did that. So if you agree, we'll take a motion to approve. Otherwise, if you have any questions.
Okay, anyone have any questions? Okay, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote, Mike,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
April,
Yes.
and myself, yes. 500.
Okay, moving on to the wellness program, school district. With that one, Ms. Powers noted to track the active needs in the last bullet under physical education. Suggested by Dr. Schwalm to change the phrase to track the activity needs. And Ms. Powers also noted that number 1 under nutrition guidelines needs to be revised. Mr. Brigioli suggested a comma after the word day. and there you have it. So if you take a motion to approve as suggested.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote, Mike,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
April,
Yes.
and myself, yes. 500.
Okay. Homeschooling. Dr. Schwalm recommended exchanging the existing homeschooling policy with the mask homeschooling policy, as the mask policy captures the policy in a concise and efficient way. And we were in agreement. We like the mask policy better than what we had, so we just literally swapped it completely. So if you guys agree, please say so. Otherwise, make some suggestions.
My only question is, there are a few things that are different, but everyone was okay with that. Like Dr. Schwam, you were okay with that, Dr. Shaverhood? Okay. So is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, Mike,
Yes.
Kevin, Kevin,
Yes.
okay, Mary,
Yes.
April,
Yes.
and myself, yes, 500.
Okay. Moving on to. Career education. So we had quite a bit of discussion on this, and then we weren't even sure it was even necessary, but we wanted to table it because we were just not comfortable, with doing anything with it at the time. As the notes say here, Dr. Shaverhood suggested to table the policy. Dr. Schwam suggested that the strategic plan steering committee would look into a way to make the policy applicable, but you have it in your packet if you want to make any suggestions if you want at this time.
Does anyone have any suggestions? So it'll just be taken up by the policy review committee at a future time. Is that
Yeah.
what you're saying? Yeah, okay.
Residency. Dr. Shaverhood suggested changing the language in the first paragraph under verification of residency to this evidence will include two of the following. See residency procedure, and that was it.
Okay. Any questions on that one? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Roll call vote, Mike,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
April,
Yes.
and myself, yes.
And that should do it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Also in the packet, there was a list of meeting dates for next year. Does anyone have any comments on those, or I did notice that there is a meeting scheduled for November 4th tentatively on here, and we could change that because that does conflict with convention, the mass convention, assuming they'll be able to have it in person. Go ahead, Nick.
So is that to be voted on at the next meeting?
Yeah, so I'm just asking you for your suggestions at this point so that we can bring it back to a vote next time.
Okay.
So does anyone have any comments or suggestions on that one? Sorry, April, can't hear you.
I would agree to possibly moving that meeting if it conflicts with the mass conference.
Okay. We'd have to move it up a week to October 28th because the following Thursday is a holiday.
I would agree to if it conflicts with the mass conference to reschedule it, to moving that date or having.
Okay. All right, so we'll redraft that with that different date.
Whatever we would have to do, I just know that going to
Did you really hear any of that, Joyce?
official, so I would hate for people to have to be rushing, assuming that it takes in Hyannis again, back and forth to make sure that we're there, so.
I hear what she's saying, but she wants to reschedule the date because of the conference. Other than that, no, I did not hear what she said. But I got the gist of it. All right, so
Am I all spotty? Can no one hear me?
yes, but I did get, no, we can't really hear you, but I did get the gist of what you were saying about the date. So we're good, and we'll bring it back next time for a vote. Got dates. So I guess we do have time, so we'll go back to the Code of Ethics. I know I brought something like this up before. This one is actually from the Mask website. Like you said, Mike, they have policies that are preset, already written, sometimes just adopted as is by districts. So I'm proposing that we consider this policy. And it would be a policy. It wouldn't just be a statement by the school committee. It would be a policy. I did look into how some other districts handle it. The Bourne School Committee, for instance, has adopted this as a policy. It would go in, into the policy manual. It would be reviewed as a policy, but it would have to be approved, as you know, by the whole school committee in order for that to happen. So I guess we wouldn't vote on it tonight. It's our policy that a policy be introduced at one meeting and then voted on at the following meeting. So I guess I'm just introducing it tonight and just asking you what your thoughts on it are. So if anyone wants to share their thoughts.
It seemed fairly
I
clear
haven't
and
really had a-
straightforward to me.
Okay. April?
I think possibly some of the wording can be in some, I would have to look more in depth and kind of see what I haven't really had the time. It's been a crazy week to really look fully at all. I mean, I understand the purpose of the code of ethics and as it regards to our role as school committee members and our roles in the community and things of that nature, but there might be some specific wording that I would want to look at more closely and bring any perspective thoughts to the next meeting.
Okay. All right, we can do that. So I guess I'm just looking like for a consensus. Are you willing to look at something like this and, be open to voting on it if, even if we make certain changes? This, like I said, this came right from the Mask website.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Mike and Mary, are you open to that? And if you're not, like, what would your concerns be?
Yeah, no, I'll listen more. I don't know. It's just a lot of it is just sort of a given, but like April says, I'll look at it some more.
Okay, all right. So we'll bring it next week, the next meeting. So we'll move on to the next item, which is just any other business. Does anyone have any other business? Mike, are you?
No.
Okay, all right. Then I would just ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Okay, and before we take a vote, I do just want to take another minute to thank everyone who's here tonight, everyone who shared their thoughts. I just want everyone to know that, you're heard. We appreciate that you've come out, to let us know your thoughts. And again, like I said before, we will continue to listen and we'll continue, to meet with the educators and all the staff, the superintendent, the principals have been really great about that going forward as this plan unfolds. So thank you to everyone. Okay, so I'll take a vote. Mike?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
April?
Yes.
And myself, yes, 500. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Night.
Good night.
Have a good night.